I've found myself having a new appreciation or a reignited appreciation of beautiful editions of books because they are rarer now for me to encounter in my reading life, and it feels like a special treat when I get to read a really nice edition of a book. I sold a lot of my books last year. It was just an excessive amount that I had. Way too much of my money went into that department, and kind of had an awakening after what felt like a 2 year blur of just buying tons and tons of books. I had a feeling of overwhelm, feeling like I couldn't start new books if they weren't already on my shelves because I felt like I had a pre existing engagement with the ones that were already in my possession, and I felt like I couldn't branch out and just pick up something random at the library because I had such a long backlist. So, the book that honestly made me even want to make this video is this edition of Carmilla, which is just something that I've been obsessed with for forever. The size of this book is also just really nice. It's not necessarily traditional size. Here's another book just for comparison. I just really liked the size of it. I liked how shiny it was, and it's October. I didn't have a lot of spooky books on my radar for the month, and I just was having a little bit of a tough week, and I picked this up on a Saturday morning intending to admire it, and it's so short. I was just like, let me read the first page, see what's up, and ended up sitting on the couch for like 3 hours and just reading the entire thing. And I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun reading this. I'm not the type of person who just willy-nilly picks up classics. It is something that requires a lot of courage for me. And this was an exception to that case, and honestly helped a lot with my fear of classics and the fear of feeling not smart enough to read them or it's all going to be boring. This did not go over my head. It didn't make me feel stupid. It was very engaging. The chapters are extremely short. They have names. The chapters have titles, which is always fun and felt very modern, considering that this, if you don't know what Carmilla is about, this is the original vampire story. There's probably other vampire lit written before Carmilla, but this is the vampire story that inspired Dracula, which is the basis of a lot of the vampire lore in the West. So I've always known about it, but it just kind of came at the right time. I've just been surrounded by library books that can be kind of crusty, dusty, musty sometimes, and I really do appreciate it. I love the library. I've discovered just an enormous passion for being at the library this year. It's my happy place. It's such a blessing to be able to go to the library and just get books for free and read anything I want. But yeah, sometimes the crusty, musty, dusty books kind of get to me. I'm a little freakish about germs sometimes, and this was just sitting on my partner's shelf, and I was just like, God, it's a beauty. The queer vibes were far queerer than I was expecting. I knew that it was kind of queer, but I didn't expect for it to feel as modern as it did. It felt really modern. It kind of feels like Jennifer's Body took a lot of, not a lot, but it feels like Jennifer's Body may have been influenced by the relationship between the girls in this book. It just feels very reminiscent of that. But that could just be commonalities when telling stories about kind of sapphic female friendships. So, or very sapphic female friendships. Another beautiful addition and spooky is this copy of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Here's a side and the back. Hill House was great. I started this in September and I finished it in October. And this is my second book that I've read by Shirley Jackson. I read We've Always Lived in the Castle in January of this year, and I loved that book. It was the first book of the year, 5 stars, obsessed. This one I liked slightly less than We Have Always Lived in the Castle, but I still did really enjoy it. Definitely creepy, definitely disturbing. I don't read horror or thrillers, or this isn't a thriller, but I don't really read the spooky genre at all. It's not something that is necessarily my interest, so this was spooky for me. I also haven't read any haunted house stories, so for some people this might feel cliche, but this is the haunted house story. I guess that's the theme for me this month, reading the books that started trends. This is a Penguin Deluxe edition. The deluxes are always just really nice in the hand. They have these deckled edges generally. They have really nice big font. So that's another book that I stole from my partner's shelves and got to enjoy this month. And the last of his books is this gorgeous edition of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, which I am only one chapter into. I haven't finished this. It has sprayed edges. I don't really know what color you'd call this, maybe like brown. The back is stunning as well, just gorgeous. And it says, "I can't stand it to think my life is going so fast and I'm not really living it." I liked that quote a lot. My partner did read this last year, so that is part of what influenced my decision to pick this up. But really, it was the cover. It was the cover, because I was just looking at all the pretty books he had, and I was like, I want to be able to hold a pretty book and feel luxurious. Just based on the first chapter, I already feel like I'm going to really enjoy Hemingway's style of writing, or his prose. It was very simple, very quiet, but very engaging. I'm already intrigued with the characters who have been introduced, 3 thus far. I know a little bit about it from when my partner read the book, so I'm not going in blind, but I'm still just very excited to keep reading this. Unpopular opinion, but am I the only person? This might be more of like an exception. I don't mind the sprayed edges terribly. It's still not my favorite. I don't really like sprayed edges. I think I used to like it, and it feels like after Fourth Wing came out, every book that has been published since then feels like it's getting sprayed edges. Sally Rooney's new book, Intermezzo, came out like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and it's got sprayed edges. And I'm just kind of like, I thought sprayed edges were like a special edition, usually for the fantasy genre. Like, I don't know, like literary fiction with sprayed edges is just strange to me. The sprayed edges in general, because I feel like most of the time they're being done like super cheaply. Before I had sold my copy of Iron Flame, I loved the cover design, and the sprayed edges just were terrible. They were spotty and like stuck together, and I feel like they make books look cheap now. I feel like I'm probably in the minority, because whenever I watch videos of people getting new books and they have sprayed edges, everybody loves it. And I loved it too at first, and then it felt like every book became a sprayed edge book. And now I'm just tired of it. And when I have the choice to, not like I'm really buying books anyways at the moment, because I just get everything from the library, but if I had the choice to buy a book with sprayed edges versus just white edges, I would buy the white paper. It feels like we're going to look back at sprayed edges in like 5 or 10 years from now and be like, oh, that was the 2020s trend. Speaking of sprayed edges, these ones are an exception. Sprayed edges on these little baby Macmillan classic books, I'll eat it up every time, because it's a uniform collection. They all have this blue and gold design, and they always have this gold sparkly sprayed edge, and that is a sprayed edge I can get with. I think that's part of it. Sprayed edges need to sparkle for me to like them. When it's a matte sprayed edge, I don't really get it. I don't get it. This also has a ribbon. This is Persuasion, as we can see. Jane Austen. Never understood. Never got it. I have wanted to understand Jane Austen for a long time. And every time I started one of her books, I would be so bored, so scared, so this is my fear of classics emerging right now. I can't continue with this. So I never got very far into any of her books, and never understood how so many people were still reading them when they seemed so boring. I've also never watched any of the movie adaptations of any of Jane Austen's works, because even in the movies, I would get really bored. So, Persuasion's changed that. I was very bored in the beginning. I was lost. It was going over my head. I felt stupid. And then after, I want to say, 100 pages, it got really great. I feel like it's just a learning curve. After that point, I got very invested in the story. I got very invested in the characters. I actually am not totally finished. I have like 40 pages left, which I think I'm going to finish this up this weekend, but I am extremely proud of myself for picking this up and sticking with it and getting over that little 100-page mark. I feel like this has changed the way that I view classics so greatly and opened my eyes to this whole new genre that I'm now so freaking excited to read more of. And I get Jane Austen now. I get it. I really did expect to read this and still not get it and just be a hater that's secretly just jealous because I wasn't smart enough to get the book. But I'm really so glad that I stuck it out. The audiobook helped me a lot to persevere through those parts where I felt like I was getting nothing from it. I just kind of would listen, read alongside. That helped a lot. Reading and listening together, this like immersive reading process, that was very encouraging and helped me just keep moving forward. I read this at the gym a lot, strangely. I would just like walk on the treadmill, and this is such a tiny book that I kind of just like, the thing that was most surprising or moving to me was how much I understood the emotions that were on the page of looking at somebody longingly across a room, or just like the butterflies of talking to someone that you like. It was just so girly. It was so girly, and I was surprised because sometimes I have this image of classics and like just old literature of being something unrelatable, something that I'm not really gonna empathize with. And this girl, these characters, this like rich London life, although the main characters are kind of down on their luck, they're not super rich at this point in their lives, but still, just 1800s London people. I didn't think that I was going to be moved or feel a connection the way that I did with the characters, and I did, and I this was actually really funny too. I'm so excited to watch the Netflix adaptation with Dakota Johnson. I like her a lot. I think she's really funny. This actually all started because my cousin was forcing me to watch Pride and Prejudice. I was bored. I watched like the first 45 minutes of it with her, and I was bored, and I came home and I was like, God damn it, I want to understand Jane Austen. I want to understand why everybody loves Jane Austen, and I'm going to read Persuasion because I already had this copy. No, I didn't. I had a different copy. I have another one that I borrowed from my aunt because she loves Jane Austen. I had that. I was like, I'm going to read this damn book. I have it in my house. And then I found this one at a local used bookstore that I really love for $6.50. Come on. a Macmillan for that price, and you want me to walk home with my pockets empty? That sounds like I stole it. I paid for it. And they're just gorgeous, and I love having mass market paperbacks to like put in my pocket and be able to read on the go. This is not like a paperback nor mass market, but it was really nice and convenient to be able to carry around, and I'm really enjoying this. I'll probably give a more involved summary or review when I finish it. Now on to some library books. In September and October, I read How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents and The Intuitionist. This is by Julia Alvarez. This is by Colson Whitehead. Both of these were for a class, which is why I'm putting them together. I liked this one. It was good. I didn't love The Intuitionist. If you've read it, tell me your thoughts. It's about elevators. Not really. Not actually. It's about a lot more than elevators, but to me, there was a lot of talk of elevators, and that was hard for me to get through. I'm not going to say a lot about these two. I am glad that I read them, but I talked about these a lot in class. So a couple of other books I've been reading from the library. Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. My last video was about this book, and I said I was going to make more videos about this book, and I never did. Still reading it. Don't know where I am because I kind of fell out of it for a bit, returned it to the library, and then randomly came back to it. And it is good. Not the top on my radar right now, but I have it in my possession. Other book, random, boring, The Hunger Habit. Actually, I love this. Why We Eat When We're Not Hungry and How to Stop. Sounds very diet culture, I know, I know you're screaming, kicking, crying, and throwing up. I'm sorry, I know. It's not. It's not diet culture at all. It's very much mindful eating core, mindfulness in general. And this book has been the most helpful thing on my like health and fitness journey. Really educational about just paying attention, just mindfulness when it comes to food. And it's pretty fun to read because it's structured in these like daily chapters. So I look forward to it, reading it in the morning, and just getting my little like 15-20 minutes of, okay, this chapter is going to tell me to be nice to myself, pay attention to my body, and not stuff myself until I'm sick, you know? Stuff like that. The elephant in the room, to me, Brave New World. I am halfway through this book. I'm in the middle of a lot of books. I read a lot of books at once. I don't think I've been reading just one book at a time since like 2022. What is the year? 24? Maybe 2021. It hasn't been like that for a while, you know? So my attention is constantly on several books at once, but this one is special because I'm reading it with my cousin as a buddy read, and that has been really, really fun for me and hopefully for her too. We call mostly every week, but sometimes every 2 weeks, and we discuss a chapter or two. So we have been reading this book for a while. I actually have already read this book in 2020 or 2021. I think 2020. I read it for a class. I didn't really like it back then. I like it a lot more on the reread. I think just being a little bit older and having more of a brain and opinions on capitalism. Books are always more fun, in my opinion, when it's read outside of a classroom context. So, although the classroom I'm talking about, it was in university, I'm still in university, but, reading it with my cousin, gal pal, is just more fun. Now I'm just going to talk about the rest of the books that I have out from the library. Henry David Thoreau. So Henry David Thoreau was never on my radar until Mr. Newport brought him up in Digital Minimalism. He talked about Lincoln and Thoreau several times. And two things came from that. One, I started reading Walden. The second thing, started writing Abraham Lincoln fan fiction. We'll leave that there. The next book I have, The Colossus of New York by Colson Whitehead. I didn't love The Intuitionist by Colson Whitehead, but I stumbled upon this when I was acquiring this book, and I was like, oh, he writes nonfiction. And this is a collection of vignettes, 13 vignettes about New York City. And I'm from Long Island, and I spent a lot of time in the city because my grandmas lived, both of them, in Brooklyn. So I have kind of lived in the city. And I read the first page of this and just really liked it. And there are other authors, I'm talking to you, John Green, that I don't particularly love their fiction, but I'm a fan of their nonfiction. I'm here because I was born here and thus ruined for anywhere else, but I don't know about you. That's first sentence. And I really liked that. So I thought I would give his nonfiction a try and see if I liked this better than his fiction. Random, weird, Hamlet. It was just close to where I found this book too, and I was like, October feels like a good time to pick this up. It's a play. I thought if I was looking for something kind of quick, maybe I would get to this month. Tessa the D'Urbervilles. I started reading this in the summer, and I got through part 1, The Maiden, started Maiden No More, put it down, ended up selling that book just with the intention of like finishing it from a library copy and then never picked it up. So here it is. Don't really know if this is my priority to finish this month. Probably not, but I just felt like getting it. And finally, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. This is also something I have in my possession because of a class at school. It's some instructions on writing and life. I actually do really like this one. As it says, instructions on writing and life. I am an aspiring novelist, so it has been helpful. I think that's going to conclude all of the books that I'd like to talk about for right now. This is a weird video. I know. I know. Some books I talked about the content, some of them I just talked about the way they looked. So I hope that's okay with you. And maybe the next one will be a wrap up. Thanks for watching the video this long. If you did, then you probably have some thought or another, and I like reading them in the comments, so do with that what you will. Bye!